The Apartment Gurus podcast is brought to you by Greenlight Equity Group, an apartment acquisitions and holdings firm co-founded by Carl York and Tate Siemer, host of this show. We offer you the opportunity to be an owner of cash-flowing, wealth-growing apartments without the headaches of being a landlord. These assets are recession-resistant, risk-mitigated, offer significant tax advantages, and are a great alternative to the stock market. Ready to check it out? Go to www.investwithgreenlight.com today to book a personal consultation with Carl or Tate. Again, that's investwithgreenlight.com. We look forward to meeting you. Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome, everybody, back. Another episode of the Apartment Gurus podcast is coming at you right now. And we have on the show today a gentleman who I would say is, like all of us, a guru in the making, right? Like he's done some really exciting things in the multifamily space and is doing some exciting things in the multifamily space. And unlike, like the guest that I had on yesterday, who was, has $1 billion in assets under management. That was Michael Episcope with Origin Investments. Some of us aren't there yet, right? But we're working in that direction, whether that's our goal or something else. And I know that's the case for me. That we call this the Apartment Gurus, and I always like to add that I don't necessarily consider myself a guru just yet. I kind of think of myself as like the older Anakin Skywalker in Jedi training, if that makes sense. So, and today's guest is, I would say kind of in a similar space where we're up to big things and doing up to doing bigger things in the future. So we've got William Walker on the show. And William is coming to us from Nashville, Tennessee, which is essentially his hometown. Went to school in Knoxville, UT Knoxville, and he's done some exciting stuff. So he previously worked in corporate real estate, where he consulted with large companies on buying and selling multifamily properties, and also helped with asset valuation. And I love that because we talk about different ways to get started in this business a lot. And what William's done here is he got a job working in the field professionally, consulting large companies on big deals. Like, you're going to learn so much, so incredibly much doing something like that. And to do that before you started, William, in your own venture in 2015, we'll talk about this, but I imagine that was just incredibly valuable experience for you, like just a great launch pad. But I can't wait to talk to you about that. So in 2015, William founded his first real estate investment company, acquired his first rental property. To date, he has gone full cycle on 1,300 apartment units. Fantastic work. He's developed 12 single family houses. He's under construction, so he's going ground up on 144 apartments. Is that one project, William?
Yes, one project, 2 phases.
Nice. That's great. That's a nice big community. Good for you. And he's in the final stages of permitting for 42 single families in Nashville, and he currently has a 226 unit portfolio. So we were talking offline before the show about skiing. He's a big skier, and as am I, and he's coming out here to Salt Lake City to ski in February. Maybe we could take a few runs together, William, when you're out here. So and he's a big traveler and also does some scuba diving, which I really want to do. Like, it's a bucket list thing for me. I haven't done it yet. And one of his notable goals is to develop and build 2,000 apartment units. So, William, welcome to the show, man. So stoked to have you on here.
Thank you, Tate. Glad to be here. Always love talking deals with new people, new investors.
Yeah. It's great to make the connection, and really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me and the audience, and have a little jam session, so to speak, here. So, just to start out, if you could kind of share a little bit more color on your background and your story. I'm real interested in. I just think I don't think there's a much better way of getting into the business at a really high level than doing what you did with your corporate job. So, like, I'm interested in hearing all about that too. So yeah, just whatever you think will be good for us to hear about you. We'd love to hear.
Sure. I'll try and start with the 30,000-foot flyover. And if you want to drill into anything, feel free to stop me. But I started working for a family business at an early age. My parents were not in real estate, didn't come from a multi-generational real estate family, but learned the value of hard labor early on. Had a car, I was washing cars and cutting grass at about 12 years old in the summer times. And after school, got into college, and my profession and studies were in accounting and supply chain management. And I always had a desire to start my own business. I just didn't always know what I wanted to do. So that kind of led me into accounting and finance and operations. And ultimately, I figured that would help me run a business. But in 2015, I bought my first rental property. It was a 3-2 ranch, and moved 3 friends in from school to rent that out. I was, I think, making $700 a month per room, and my mortgage was, roughly $1,600. So right off the bat, had a little cash flow and eliminated a living expense. And, that definitely was eye-opening for me in a way. And I had set goals to buy real estate, but that was kind of my first teeth-cutting experience into the business. And shortly thereafter, I had my CPA license and accounting training from college and grad school. I got hired by Ernst & Young and went into their transaction real estate practice. And my very first client was Mid-America Apartments. They're one of the largest publicly traded REITs out in the country by unit count. And the first acquisition I was working on was the purchase of Post Properties in 2016. And Mid-America bought Post Properties for $3.8 billion, I believe, and about 22,000 doors. So I tell people I got, almost a PhD in multifamily during that time. I really got to see the intricacies of underwriting large portfolios, how these properties were valued, all the assumptions, the underwriting, the syndication models, the LP and GP structures. So it was really a blessing, really, to have that exposure. And I also joined a coaching and networking group, mentorship program in 2016. At the same time, I was working with EY. So I was really all in. I had purchased 2 rental properties by that time. I was working in corporate real estate. I joined a coaching and networking program, and I was all in on apartments. But I think the game really changed for me in 2017 when I quit that role and job and went full time into the business and concentrating on multifamily specifically. And it wasn't a straight line for me, but I kind of tell people, some of the advice, and I think some of the key ways I got into the business were, one, like you mentioned, or shout out to your listeners. I started self-educating and listening to enormous amount of podcasts before I even got in a position to be in corporate real estate, and then got into corporate real estate and got a job that was specifically in the industry I wanted to work in. Got into a networking group and around investors and other people that were further ahead of me in the business, and got mentors. And then I really committed and kind of took a burn the boats mentality. Wouldn't recommend it for everyone, but ultimately kind of rolled the dice and left a very comfortable corporate job, and said I'm gonna give this everything I've got. In 2018, I acquired my first large multifamily property, which was 160 doors in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh, in Columbus, Georgia.
Yes.
You say cool. 160, right on. Let's stop right there. First of all, I want to hear. Did you make a 3% commission on that sale that you worked on, that first one? I'm joking, but on the Post Properties.
Oh, I wish that would have been nice. It was challenging because we weren't buying or selling anything. We were just kind of riding along in the bleachers, as I say. And
Yeah.
it was fascinating to see those deals get put together.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
motivated me to actually get on the buy side or the principal side.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, you can't be on the sell side till you're on the buy side first at some
That's
point,
right.
right? So that's
Right.
and really, William, that's what I mean. All of us, the listeners, myself, you, that's what this show is all about is doing deals and acquiring property, and you know, getting to that point. We do talk a little bit about asset management here and there, and property management, and a lot of the things that go into ownership, which I know that you have, a lot of experience in now with the different properties and deals you've done. But let's talk about the first deal you did. So, how did you end up in Columbus, Georgia, from where you are in Nashville?
So Columbus, Georgia was a result of looking for higher yield. I had been in Atlanta for the past couple of years looking for deals. The cap rates were compressing at that time. I thought prices were high, which looking back, I wish I had have gone after a lot more deals in Atlanta. But ultimately looking for kind of new frontiers, new markets where competition was lower, price per door was lower, cap rates were higher, and I could ultimately earn a higher yield on my investment.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. And, makes so much sense. We're in Columbus, Ohio. And that's one of the reasons that we invest there instead of Salt Lake City, because our model is a typical syndication model where we have limited partners that we want to pay a preferred return to. And we have to buy properties that cash flow, like you just said, yield enough revenue to pay the debt service, pay the expenses, and pay our investors, and ideally pay ourselves a little bit at the end of the day. So that's really searching out a cash flow market is a good thing. I think an even better thing is to try to find one of these kind of unicorn hybrid markets that has both affordability and pretty significant growth going on, and rent growth. So that to me, that's like, that's when I coach my clients, my coaching clients. That's what we work on is going after the Oklahoma cities, the even like the St. Louis, and especially like a Kansas City, which is not a heavy growth market at all. Well, no, I wouldn't say not at all, but it's growing, but it's still very, very affordable as opposed to, I was going to say,
markets with a lot of institutional players. And another thing I like about the markets that we're discussing, usually you have a little bit longer term ownership. And, when we got into Columbus, we were dealing with a lot of not legacy owners, but owners that had owned the properties for 10 plus years versus, buying something that's traded hands multiple times over the last 5 years. Something else I like to look for.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Very, very good point. And yeah. And there's data services. Reonomy is the first one that comes to mind, where you can do market research and find out what markets have longer term ownership, because Reonomy tracks owners and how long they've owned the property and what kind of debt they have and how much. I mean, it's amazing. I have no affiliation with them, but I will give them a shout out. They've been good to us. So where did that first deal come from? How'd you find it?
When I was living in Atlanta, I was going to every networking event I could kind of get my hands on or was aware of. And I found myself in a ULI event, which, if your listeners don't know, that's Urban Land Institute. It's more focused towards new development. But like I said, I was trying to get into any event that I could find. And I met a lady there that her best friend, or a good friend of hers husband, was a mortgage broker for Berkadia. And we got to talking. She understood a little bit more about what I was doing. And, she ultimately said, "You've got to meet my friend's husband. He's, in the business you're in. I think you guys would, connect well." So shout out to Josh. But we ended up meeting and kind of hit it off immediately. I remember we met at a place called Oriental Express in Vinings, Georgia. It's an old train station restaurant, and he was originating agency financing for Berkadia National Mortgage.
Yeah.
And we had been talking for several months. I was sending him deals that I was looking at. He was underwriting the debt for me. And one day he called me up and said, "Hey, I've got this deal that I was, doing the loan on. The buyer backed out. It's I think it's a great deal. I think he's just over tapped right now. 80s built product, pretty much off market, low marketed deal before that. Do you want to take a look?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. Send it over." So he sent over the numbers, and immediately I could tell that this was certainly something within the ballpark that I wanted to pursue. And after taking a closer look, ended up putting in an offer on that deal and got it under contract shortly after he sent us that information, plugged us right in with the broker. But it was through a relationship, and not a broker relationship, but a debt broker relationship, oddly enough.
That's awesome. I love that so much. I love it. I love it. Love it. Because there's a couple, there's takeaways here like galore. So first of all, just your tenacity at going after networking events. You said you were going to everyone you could find. Like, brilliant stuff, because that is where it all happens. That is where it all happens. It's face to face. Now, there are some great virtual meetups that I highly recommend going to. And if you guys want to email me, Tate at glequitygroup.com, I'll send you a list, Google Calendar link to those networking events. But William, you're going to every single one, like even the ones not, and this one wasn't even directly related to multifam. It was a land development networking. And so you're talking to this woman, right? And she's, you're just kind of sharing with her, this is what you do. This is how you do this, is you just, "Hey, how are you? My name's Tate. What do you do? What do you, how are you in this business, and what's your specialty?" And get them talking about themselves. And I always try to think about, like, how can I contribute to this person? How can I serve this person in any particular way? But it's really just a matter of, if then, you sharing what you're up to and what pieces you're looking to fill in your business, whether it's a deal or a partner or capital or whatever. And so here you are talking to this woman, and she says, "You got to meet this guy." This guy turns into a great connection for you. And, it sounds like almost a little bit of a mentorship relationship, at least for maybe that short period of time. But, and then brings you a deal, like a good deal, 1980s build. Like, that's in the multifamily value add space. That's great. You're going to be avoiding a lot of deferred maintenance and original stuff that would need to be replaced, like electric and boilers if they were built in the 60s and stuff like that. So, 160 units is just a nice size. That's like, that's really just right in the heart. Like, you can do it. You raise, if you're able to value add and raise rents, a couple $100 on 160 units, you just created 7 figures worth of equity, multiple 7 figures worth of equity. So tell us how this deal went. What was the business plan on it? Was it a value add? Was it a remodel?
It was a value add. It qualified for agency financing, stabilized, like you said, 80s built property, great bones. I had bought it twice, or the current owner had bought it from the original developer's children. So
wow.
He had put new roofs on it, but pretty much had left everything else original. All of the units were in classic condition. There hadn't been any rent premiums in many years. So it was, going into it, it was a great opportunity. But we did see a value add play from the side of improving units, doing interior renovations. But not a ton of work was needed. It really just needed to come in, run well, unit renovations, and bring rents up to market. So we had I think our CapEx budget was around $1.5 million. We bought it for 62.5 a door, had it under contract for 62.5 a door. I think that's close to 9.9 million, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And the process was ultimately renovate half to 30% of the units, increase those rents, and hold it. And have recently exited that deal in 2021, but we went into it with a Fannie Mae agency loan. It was a 10-year term, had 5 years IO. Interest rates at that time, I believe, were high threes, maybe low fours. So had really good long-term debt on the property. It was cash flowing from day one going into the property, had good operating reserves, good CapEx reserves, and just began unit and interior renovations, and got some great rent premiums over the 2.5 years or so that owned it.
What were they renting for when you sold it? Do you remember?
When we sold it, we were in the averaging around $900, and going up, it was close to 700.
Yeah. That's great. So you paid 66.5 a door. If you use one of my real cursory back of the napkin calculations I do is the 1% rule. It sounds like you bought it right at the 1% rule. Like your rents were right around 700. You paid 66.5. And then you probably what did you spend a unit on remodels? Roughly
5,000.
4 to 5. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, cool. So you're right. It didn't need a whole lot of work. That's kind of a minimal budget. So you're into these things, 70 grand a door, and then, but you're getting $900 a month rents. Like that's crushing the 1% rule. And 2021, it's almost like, how could you not recapitalize on that asset at that point? Because the market was so hot. It was such a seller's market, and property in high demand, right?
Yeah, I would have loved to have hung on to that asset long term. It would have been a great one to keep, but I believe also in velocity of capital and taking some chips off the table. I haven't had a huge war chest, so realizing those capital gains and taking some risk off the table, returning money for investors, all of that was in that weighed into the decision, and ultimately advanced probably 10 to 12 years of cash flow through selling that property.
Yeah.
We sold for 110 a door in 2021.
That's so great, man. So you were in them roughly 70. You 110 a door.
75 a unit with our total basis.
75. Yep.
Closing costs, broker fees, all the soft costs and line items that go into it, CapEx.
So you're making 35 a door on that project at the end of the day, roughly. Mm-hmm. That's so good, man. Great first deal. That's like one of the best first deals I've ever heard, honestly. And, a couple of key things here. Number one, I mean, you just did so many things right, especially for your first deal. Cash flow on day one. Like, that is such a good purchase. Like, that is really, again, ideal. And almost necessary, like depending on your structure with your LPs, it can be almost necessary, depending on what you've agreed to. If you have a property that's got an amazing value add component, but it's not cash flowing on day one, you still might want to do the deal, but you're gonna have to structure things differently with your LPs and develop some different expectations. But you had reserves. That's so, again, necessary. Like it's really a non-negotiable. You gotta have your reserves in place. You didn't go overboard on remodels at all, and I think a lot of especially newbies would maybe tend to over improve. Sure. We've done that in our past, and so you guys kept the budget there really nice. And like you said, it had good bones, and it even had a newer roof, which is a major probably the biggest CapEx component that there is. So, did you syndicate this deal, or how did you fund it?
Yeah, it was syndicated. The debt tranche came from Fannie Mae, and then the equity was raised through a syndication, approximately 15 to 20 LPs.
Did you put those LPs together yourself?
No, that was not all alone. So in 2016, when I joined that coaching and networking group, I was introduced to or met my to-be business partner in 2016, and then we started working together in 2018 full time.
Mm-hmm.
And that deal was an amazing first deal, but it really doesn't tell the full story of kind of my struggle and time in real estate. First deal was a single family in 15, second single family was 16, leaving corporate real estate 17, helped investors buy small portfolios of single family houses around that time, developing houses, helped helped investors find a 16 unit apartment complex in Cleveland. So, through all of those repetitions and like that really hustle mentality, that I think it really enabled me to be able to go after deals. I mean, I had the corporate experience, the coaching programs, but it was a lot of hard fought battles in some ways, and learning through cutting my teeth on smaller deals to when I was in this position, I really knew what to do, what I was looking at, and ultimately was able to add value to my business partner, who was the main capital partner in the deal. I was the guy finding the deals, being able to underwrite them well, identify value, put together investor presentations, coordinate the debt. So I would encourage, listeners getting into the deal, that's a very common and popular question is how do you raise the money? You don't necessarily have to raise it all yourself from multiple people, but find someone who is, further along in the business than you are, that has more capital raising abilities, more liquidity, higher balance sheet, and you can bring value to the table through finding deals.
Did he act as the sponsor on the deal as well? Or did you guys kind of co-sponsor it, or?
Yes, we co-sponsored it. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. As far as the loan goes as well.
It was important for me to be a part of the deal and be aligned as well. And ultimately that also gives you experience with the agencies and the originators. So while I wasn't the highest net worth partner involved in the deal, I did want to be involved in the signing and ultimately guaranteeing that loan to build up my reputation and status with agency lenders.
Yeah. So smart, man. I mean, again, there's just so many aspects of this deal that what mistakes did you make, if any, that as you're looking back on this one in particular?
I mean, I'm sure I don't want to sound, I don't want the ego to get too big here, but that deal was really really smooth sailing. I mean, it's one of those when you buy right and it's a good asset and a good location, it really is an easy property to run. Like I probably had spent more time and more hours on a single family property I own in Nashville, that was built in the 60s. Still, great property, great little investment. But when you've got a good deal, good location, good bones, you've got 3 or 4 operational staff that are showing up full time to the property. It kind of runs itself when you put in a good plan.
So was this a third party management group?
At the time we had our own management in-house, and that was derived from, firing multiple management companies and, having troubled times with third party managers, but it was in-house management.
Yeah. So you did go through a couple third party folks on this deal itself?
Not on this one, on past deals. So my business partner, that was one of the strengths she brought to the table, one of many, but ultimately had a lot of experience in property management and on the operations side, and had started her own property management company before we started working together.
Got it. Okay. So, and you guys managed. Okay. So you kind of had a little bit of a vertical integration with that. I typically, formulaically speaking, will say always have third party property management, especially when you're getting started, because the asset management itself is challenging enough, managing the property manager.
I would agree, Tate. And, the property management side of the business can be one of the most difficult parts.
Yeah. Toilets, trash, tenants, the whole, all of the ugly stuff that I mean, I love our property managers so much because they do stuff that I wouldn't ever do, and they handle a level of work in this industry that, you know, we talk about a lot on the show, the importance of getting that property management piece right, getting the right group in there, the right team on these deals is absolutely massive. There really almost isn't anything more important than that as far as post transaction, post purchase, getting that property manager, selecting the right one is 95% of the battle. The other 5% is implementing the systems and processes, the business plan, and the oversight for that property manager. But if you've got the right one, or a very, very good one in place that's aligned with you and aligned with the property, that's key. Wouldn't you say? I mean, isn't it painful to have to fire a property manager?
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it'll make or break the operations and the performance of the property.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. It's make or break. I've said in the past, it's where the rubber meets the road. And if you can put a great deal together, all this stuff that you had, great bones, cash flow day one, having reserves in place, having a nice value add component. And if you pick the wrong property manager, somebody that's just not up to the job or isn't aligned or doesn't care, whatever it is, dude, it's not going to happen. Like all your plans, if they do happen, it's going to take 2 to 3 times as long, and you're going to end up with delinquencies that are out of control. I mean, that's just what happens with bad management. So listeners, big takeaway here. A couple. I'm gonna kind of fuse 2 takeaways.
Sure.
The first one is doing the vetting and the due diligence on your property management piece to death, like just overdoing the due diligence, seeing all their properties or a lot of them, secret shopping them, going with them and touring the properties, asking them tough questions. And you can Google this stuff and get good questions and lists online about what to ask a property manager. But, how do you handle this? And, when things go really badly, like how do you respond? Like, just put them on the spot, and then get referrals both from them and try to do your best to get like independent referrals too.
The properties they manage as well, and see, just do a drive-by and see how they look and get a feel for them.
I would say tour them, man. Like I'd say get in there, like secret shop those things and tour them. But but then to take that a step further, a good property manager who is, seasoned and steeped in the market and has a lot of doors under management, they could show up just like Williams' broker showed up with a deal. Like that happens all the time because property managers know usually before anyone else when somebody's thinking of selling. And they also know what properties are distressed and what properties might need a new owner, right? So this relationship, there, like I said, there really isn't a more important relationship that your team will have than with that PM, because they most importantly will get your deals right and see to the execution of the business plan, but they can also be great partners and sourcing deals.
Yeah, well said, for sure.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go take over the show there. but so tell us, okay, so you're doing some new build projects right now, some single fam stuff. Is that just with your single family stuff? Is that just because it's easy? Like, I mean, not that anything in this business is easy, but like, is it just something that you can kind of do as you're doing the multifamily business, or how's that work?
Partially. I would say so. And when I left corporate real estate, I had mentioned that I didn't go in a straight line to multifamily. I had left my job with the goal to to buy 1,000 units or to be involved in 1,000 units, and kind of had a zigzag of a path. But during that time, I moved back to Nashville, and that is when I was developing those houses, and I was very comfortable with the market. Nashville has seen tremendous amounts of growth over the past 5-10 years, and even further. So
tremendous growth.
I was
exponential growth. Yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. But I was plugged in with these networking groups, and ultimately I was going to every networking group and talking to every real estate person I could find, and I started seeing these opportunities. And that was when I first raised, or my first capital raise was for an HPR, is what we call it here. It's a horizontal property regime. Basically, you're adding density to a lot, tearing down an old house that was built in the 30s and building tall, skinny attached properties or detached staggered properties, depending on what the site allows for. And was working with a guy that I went to grad school with, who actually was one of the first renters from me in my single family house that I bought after grad school. His two cousins were general contractors, and we were all kind of hustling, and they were more so going on the single family new construction side. I was chasing multifamily, but through those connections and contacts, just saw opportunity and saw other people, being successful at this, and ultimately got involved in several projects with them and raised money for that. Co-sponsored loans for those deals. And at the time, I didn't see myself being a developer or doing new construction kind of long term. It was more of a, hey, this is a great opportunity in a market I really understand. And the margins are great. To now I'm looking back on those days, and on the first one, or maybe it was the second one, I inserted myself as the project manager in between the general contractor and the sub trades. And the general contractor was directing me, but I was ultimately coordinating, scheduling, and paying all of the sub trades for these projects. So it was, again, like a PhD for me in new construction, and saw a house being fully erected. And, when you see that visually, it's just such a learning experience. And that's carried through to larger developments and deals, and how I now look at land for apartment development.
Yeah. So, and then you've got that experience under your belt. Like, why not use it when the opportunities are good, right? Like, is that kind of how you see it?
Yes, I think that, there's opportunities in every market, and we don't make the market, we work within it. So, towards the end of 2019, 2020, and 2021, I was seeing opportunities where I could theoretically build apartments for the same price that I could purchase them from.
Yeah.
And, when you can build something new, your maintenance is lower, your yield is higher. Typically, you're dealing with a little more stable resident base, and there's a lot of pros to building new products. So, and it's also an exciting, fulfilling project and process for me. I really love the construction side of the business, and taking that project and seeing it through to lease up and stabilization, and then having a brand new asset that you're building at 70% of, cost of 70% of market value, give or take. You've got that built-in value, and then you start adding appreciation through, just longevity and holding the asset. Things can really start to come together, but it is a more difficult process. There's different risk involved, and typically takes 3-4 years to complete one of these projects. But it's something I really enjoy.
When you this is a multifamily. We're talking multifam here, right? Like an apartment building,
144 unit apartment that I have going on in Brownsville, Texas.
Right. Okay. I was going to ask you how big. So, and like you said, there's actually, I've had a few exclusively new build guys on the show, and you make a lot of the same points that they've made, which is when you build something that it once stabilized has an inherent 30% market position or whatever, and you've got that much equity in it, you could argue that you've just done something that's risk mitigated as compared to buying something like that exists right now that may be 20, 30, 40 years old, and your bet is, getting to perform a rents, and
Absolutely.
so there is a lot to be said for new build, and I'm kind of preaching to myself here too, as far as our future goes, because the markets that we're in, especially the Columbus, Ohio market, I think is really going to need a lot of new units, and they've got this $20 billion Intel plant going in there, and it's going to change everything. So yeah, that's some great points there, great takeaways. So looking forward, for you, William, what's kind of, do you want to kind of keep going with this, I guess, what path do you want to be on in terms of what lane? Are you going to pick one of these lanes? Are you going to kind of be opportunistic with it?
Yeah, I mean, my goal is to develop 2,000 units for sure, and then also look for opportunistic value add plays. But
Yeah.
I like truly distressed property that has, a serious value play. Like a lot of the value add deals out there right now, it's just like handing it off to the next person in line and kind of passing the bag along down the line without, beating that drum too hard. But yeah, my goal is to develop workforce housing in scale. And, through those relationships and that process, I'll have the vertical integration through the construction side to be even more efficient on the value add side. So, while we're not developing from the ground up, a lot of those trades can be interchangeable. Not every one of them. And there's certainly trades that are better on a new development side than coming in and renovating a property, but it's very relatable and has a lot of overlap. So
yeah,
I want to continue to build. I also will look for distressed assets as well.
I love it.
Apartments is, my future, and God willing, we'll be in this business for a very long time. I'd like to be one of those old deal guys that's, still showing up to the office at 80 years old. Like
right.
One of the gentlemen that I purchased a property from in 2019, such a great guy, and just, admire still getting after it.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I love the process, and whether it's new development or, buying old, I think I can be successful in both.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Dude, this has been awesome. I am going to throw a couple, kind of final 5 questions. They won't be 5, but, I'm just curious, cause you've got a really good business mind and entrepreneurial mindset, and have just, I'm assuming that you're quite a bit younger than me, just by the way you look, and you got that baby.
I'll throw it out there. I'm 33, Tate.
Yeah, there you go. You're quite a bit younger than me. So, but that said, like, you've done some really exciting stuff and are up, and now you have all these skill sets that you've developed through all this experience, and that stuff's priceless, man. Like just great job overall. Like you've really, I know it hasn't always been easy, and there's been struggles and obstacles, and that's the way any good entrepreneurial path goes, right? Like it's gonna happen. So
a lot of sacrifice for sure.
Yeah. As far as you did the coaching networking group, it sounds like that was just a huge influence on you in terms of getting at your launch pad stage, and you met your partner there. Again, just if you're not willing to get out there and network, on the one hand, I wouldn't even do this business. But if you are willing to get out there and network and do it at a really high level, and do what my friend Sterling White calls world-class follow-up on contacts, look, everything you need to get the business done in this industry is in these meetup groups. Everything you need. So, whether it's your local Utah, we have our Utah Real Estate Investor Association, that is a local group here that I'm on the board of. And I go to all the meetings, whether it's something like that, or I think even better, a multifamily specific, maybe a national mastermind, or a one-on-one mentoring, one-on-one coaching program. There's some great ones out there. If you guys want to email me, I'm happy to share with you the good coaching programs I know of, including my own, by the way. So what would you say, William, aside from like that, which was huge in terms of like thought leadership? Like you mentioned, you listen to a lot of podcasts to get started. And were there any like really key ones or any key books or audiobooks, kind of from the thought leadership space that you would point an investor to?
Two that stand out to me that really made a big impact in my life was you're going to have heard of this, is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Classic book right there, must read. And then the one that funneled me into that multifamily group was Multifamily Millions. David Lindahl wrote it.
Yep.
And at the time, there was not many coaches and multifamily programs out there. This was in 2015, very early on. He had been around a while, but those were two books that really changed. You kind of look back and see trajectory changing moments that aren't always obvious, present. But those two books definitely had an impact on me and kind of changed the course of my life in different ways. And I would say work in the business, like whether it's on the analysis side, like I did. A lot of people like cringe and don't want to go crunch numbers and analyze deals, but you can be on the sales side with a broker. You can be on the lending side with a mortgage lender. You can be on an asset manager side. So I would encourage people that are getting started, and some of your listeners, like get involved in the business in some form or fashion, because many people parlay that into buying deals, once they build the experience. And then in tandem with that, get involved in a coaching and networking group that's more so focused on acquiring deals and teaching people that. And that's exactly what I did. And another key point I would say is when you get into these masterminds, like a lot of times they're not cheap, and there's so much free resource and education that you can start with to be able to add more value to these people when you get into these groups, to where you're not coming in there like, saying what's a cap rate, or, like teach me everything. Like you need to have, you need to be able to speak the language at this point, and maybe have done a single family deal or a rental property or something, to where you can come in and add immediate value to people that are further along than you, where people are always happy to help and educate, but you're just going to maximize your time and, your commitment to these organizations when you've done your own work and kind of done everything. You exhausted your free resources online before you get in that position.
Yeah. Well said. Really good point. Really, really good point. And, another thing that came to mind is like, there's my buddy, Tim Bratz. He does a boot camp, a 3-day boot camp that's all about learning the business from A to Z. So if you don't know what a cap rate is, if you don't know what stabilization means, if et cetera, you will learn the language that you need to know when you go to a high level mastermind. And you want to go to a high level mastermind, like you want to put yourself in the right room, right? So there's boot camps, there's great audio books and physical books. Joe Fairless's book comes to mind, the best ever apartment syndication book. And I would do all of it. Like if you're in, like, William mentioned earlier, burning the ships on the beach. Like if you're in, you're in. And if you're not, if you're half in my opinion. Can you do this with a W-2? Absolutely. Like 100% you can do this with a W-2, but it's got to be like a huge thing for you. And you got to, ideally, I think you have to have a level of passion for it and a level of excitement about it, because that's really what'll carry you forward in the business. And I can tell that you love this, huh?
I do. I love what I do. I'm a deal guy. I love the hunt, the chase for the deal, and there's ups and downs to the business, but I would never go back.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Well, man, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all the things that you've shared and your experience. You speak about it really well, and you know the business really well. And I can tell that you spent that time cutting your teeth in that corporate gig. And I just think that's a great story for listeners to hear. So what is the best way for listeners to reach you if they want to learn more about you and network with you?
Yeah. And thank you, Tate. I appreciate the opportunity to come on today. Best
bet.
way, well, social media is one way. On Instagram at willwalker_3, at our company website, www.4mrei.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn.
4M as in Mary, REI.com. And check out the socials for William Walker. So Will Walker _3.
That's right.
And you're on LinkedIn, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. LinkedIn, guys, is legit. Like, listeners, if you're not on LinkedIn and if you're not working LinkedIn a little bit, I mean, I honestly can't say I like hammer it, but have a presence on LinkedIn. It is worth it. It really is worth it. And don't be afraid to put out there what you need. Like, like Tate Siemer owns 595 doors in Columbus and Oklahoma City, looking for passive investors or LP equity or institutional equity or something. That's kind of off the top of my head, but like, let people know what you're doing and what you need. And it's amazing what'll happen on LinkedIn, in my opinion. Just
put it out there.
Yeah, exactly. Put it out there. Dude, thanks a ton. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Tate. I appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully we can get some runs in Salt Lake sometime soon.
I would love that. Yeah, please follow up with me on that. I'm going to be out here for the Best Ever conference too, the Joe Fairless conference. That's in March, by the way. I'm thinking of sending out an invite and saying intermediate/expert skiers. I might just say expert skiers only, and take them out for a day, because I think people kind of round up when it comes to their skiing ability. So, and look, where we ski out here is not easy skiing. It's Snowbird and Alta ski resorts are.
You be conditioned and know what you're doing for sure.
Yeah, they're for real, man. They like you say, they really whip me into shape in the winter. That's when I really get in good shape. But William, we wish you all the best, and in your ventures, please stay in touch and let us know how we can help here at Team Greenlight. If there's any synergy on projects or anything like that, I'd love to explore that. But we'll have you back in maybe a year or so, 6 months or to a year, and talk about, kind of get an update from you and talk about the new things that you're doing and what you've been able to accomplish.
That would be great. We'd love to come back.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, you bet. And listeners, thank you. Really appreciate you guys and love hearing from you. You can reach me at investwithgreenlight.com. You can schedule a Calendly Zoom meeting with me there for 10-15 minutes to just kind of meet and discuss your business, and no strings attached. There's not selling anything. So love to hear from you guys. And so take me up on that. And yeah, it's good stuff. I love connecting with you guys. So on that, we're coming out with 2 of these a week right now, and really pumping out as much value as we can for you here on the Apartment Gurus. So until the next one, take care, everybody.
This has been the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus.